All right, good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are logging in from. My name is Howard Morrison, and I will be your host for today's webinar, which is titled Introduction to DaSy's Data Linking Toolkit webinar. We are very excited to share this new toolkit, which includes many resources, including visuals, steps, tips, checklists, worksheets, and more. My co-presenters today are Denise Mozzie and Bruce Stoll from the DaSy Center, and they will share more about the data linking toolkit in a few minutes. So a few logistics before we get started. Want to encourage folks to use the chat to communicate with your presenters. Feel free to introduce yourself, indicate which state you're joining from. You can also use the Q&A feature if you want to ask direct questions to the discussants. We'll also be monitoring the chat to review any questions that you may have throughout the presentation and answer them during or at the end of the presentation. Also note that we do have closed captioning available, so please be sure to use that option if you need that closed captioning for your viewing purposes. All right, so today we are going to talk about OSEP's perspective on data linking. What is data linking? An overview of the newly released data linking toolkit. Really see all the different content and different sections of the toolkit. Then also hear about the opportunities and next steps regarding the data linking toolkit. So we'd like to begin with a special guest. Today we have Meredith Michelli, the DaSy Project Officer from OSEP, to share the federal perspective on data linking. So I'm going to now turn it over to Meredith and let her share.
Thank you. Hello all. As you just heard, I'm Meredith Michelli from the Research to Practice Division at the Office of Special Education Programs at the U.S. Department of Education. And in addition to being one of the project officers for DaSy, I also work with the IDIO Section 618 data that's submitted into the department, into OSEP. And I am extremely excited to be joining you all today for the release of this very important resource on data linking. Since we began DaSy back in 2012, we have believed in the power of linking data for young children with disabilities, both across IDA programs and systems, as well as those data with other early learning programs, data in other early learning programs. Data linking will improve the quality of the data we have on young children with disabilities, as well as improve our ability to use those data for program improvement and compliance. Appropriately linking data to other sources allows for the cross-validation to ensure that data we are using is accurate and complete. Additionally, it opens up a whole new set of opportunities for data analysis and use to improve programs and outcomes for young children with disabilities. There's also the possibility of efficiencies in using data that are linked. So, for instance, if the same data is being collected in two places, one of the two data collections may no longer be needed if the data are linked. DaSy has seen the value of linking data and has worked hard to support states in making the strides in this area. In addition to DaSy, ED has funded other initiatives to support the linking of data, including OSEP's Center for the Integration of IDA Data, or CID, which supports states' use of statewide longitudinal data system to report the Part B IDA Section 618 data. The Statewide Longitudinal Data Systems Program, or the SLDS program, which is funded out of the National Center for Education Statistics here at ED, and provides grants to states to design, develop, implement, and expand K through 12 or P20W, so early learning through workforce, longitudinal data systems. And then we have the Common Education Data Standards, or CEDS, which is also funded out of the National Center for Education Statistics as an education data management initiative, whose purpose is to streamline the understanding of data across and within P20W institutions and sectors. Across these efforts, we share the belief that data linking results in a more robust, high-quality data that can be used to improve programs and outcomes for children in a more efficient and data-driven manner. I want to thank and congratulate DaSy for putting this toolkit together. This is extremely important work, and I look forward to seeing how it is used and implemented within the states. Thank you for joining the webinar today. I hope you all enjoy it.
Great. Thank you so much, Meredith. We really greatly appreciate you being here and sharing your thoughts. Just as a reminder, I just want to reiterate, if folks would just please share their names and the states that they're joining from in the chat. We'd love to hear from you and get a sense of those that are here today. So, we are really excited to share the newly released data linking toolkit with you all. And so we're really hoping that participants will increase their awareness about the existence of the data linking toolkit, increase their knowledge of the content within the data linking toolkit, and ultimately learn about future technical assistance opportunities that supports data linking. So let's start off today with talking about data linking. So we'll begin with what is data linking, the definition, and then discuss the goal of data linking. So what is data linking? Data linking is connecting information about an entity in one data source with information related to that same entity in another data source. So this could include connecting data related to one child participating in multiple programs. For example, child receiving services from Part C and EDI, or linking different types of data about the same child within a single program. For example, child's Part C service provider and child's Part C outcome data. So let's now talk about what is the goal of data linking. So here the goal is to create and analyze a new data set to answer important questions, inform program improvement, and ultimately better support children with disabilities and their families. So also would want to talk about what's the need for data, linking data, and what drives the need for data linking. And really, this is to answer one or more complex questions that program staff cannot answer with only Part C or Part B data. So these questions may come from within Part C or Part B 619 programs, within the lead agency. Could be conversations between administrators in different programs or agencies, state legislators, stakeholder groups, and more. So to link data, there may be different partner configurations needed. So that could be from single agency, single program, which is a program linking two data sets within the same program, a single agency, multiple programs, which is two programs within the same agency linking data sets, and then multiple programs, multiple agencies with multiple programs. And this is really where there's one program within one agency linking data with data from another program within a different agency. And so that could be Part B 619 data with data from Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Acts program. So if you're looking for additional questions, DaSy has developed the DaSy critical question. And I will just quickly share theirs with you and drop that link in the chat as well, so you can have access to those. So you'll see here the DaSy critical questions include child and family level, practitioner level, and EIS program and LEA level. So we'd like to do a quick poll to get a sense of people's experience on data linking. So you'll see here how much data linking experience of any kind you have, none, some, or a lot. And then the second question, if you have experience with data linking, which partners have you worked with on data linking? And please select all that apply here. We'll just allow a minute for those responses to come in so we can see where folks are. So far, we're seeing a good number of folks with some experience, a small percentage with a lot, kind of a medium percentage with none. We've got about half of those that have participated. Those that have some experience have experience with Part C and Part B in IDIO agencies, child welfare, QRIS, some personnel and finance, some ECIDS and SLDS, and internal Part C and Part B. So maybe just another 30 seconds before we close out that poll. All right, I think we can end that poll and share the results if possible. Right, so we've got 78% that have some experience, 17% with none, 6% with a lot, and then you'll see here a variety of experience with partners that have worked with for data linking. So 67% with Part C and Part B, 6% on finance and personnel, and 17% on child welfare and QRIS, and then 18% on ECIDS, SLDS, and internal Part C. So great, thank you. That gives us a lot of context on where folks are in their data linking experience and the partners that they've worked with. So next I want to turn to a few questions that we have in Padlet. So there's 4 questions here that we really want you to think about during this webinar, and we will come back to that at the end. So I will share the link, and we want you to think about that, start typing your responses into the Padlet as we continue through the next part of the presentation. So I will share that link. So you all have that. Be thinking about those 4 questions. Start typing your responses in throughout the next part of the presentation. And feel free to type your questions in the chat throughout the presentation, and we can either answer them during or at the end. So I'm now going to turn over the next part of the presentation to Denise Mawsey, and she is going to talk about the overview of the data linking toolkit.
Great, Howard. Thank you so much. Just going to share my screen. Give me one moment. All right. So we are so excited to be able to walk you through some of the high points of the data linking toolkit today. And we thought it important to do so because one of the things we really want to stress is that this toolkit really is intended to support both Part B and 619 and Part C as you think about the different opportunities to link data to benefit your programs. Additionally, I think one of the other things we wanted, and we'll continue to emphasize this throughout the process today, is that when we go through the toolkit, you'll see multiple times where there'll be buttons where it indicates, that you can request technical assistance. And we just want to stress that DaSy is here to support you through any data linking process. However, that said, the toolkit is also designed that if you're feeling really comfortable and you have a lot of experience with data linking, the tools and resources are structured in such a way that you'll be able to pick those up and use them during your state processes as well. So with that said, I'm going to dive in and just give you some of the overview information before I turn it over to my colleague Bruce Full, who will go through some of the more specific steps around data linking. But on the landing page, I just want to point out here for you that the toolkit includes multiple sections to help really chunk out the content as you go through the process. And you'll see here that we provide some introductory information around data linking before we dive in and discuss some of the data linking partnerships. We get specific then on the Part C and Part B 619 data linking partners, and we saw that there was a high percentage in your poll responses today that many of you have been working on those kinds of partnerships before we go into the very specific steps for data linking. And as usual, we always provide resources as well. You can navigate using these icons, or the left-hand side always also allows full navigation through the toolkit. Hopefully, if you're familiar with any of our DaSy toolkits, we set most of the navigation up very similarly, so this will feel familiar to you. All right, so I'm talking about who this toolkit is designed for. This toolkit is really designed for a broad range of individuals who you'll be working with on data linking, because one of the things that we really stress as we go through each step in the process is that oftentimes, depending on which step you're working on, you're going to be working with a variety of individuals who have different technical expertise and skills, and that your skills together really complement one another to help make you successful in this activity. But certainly you want to make sure that individuals are very fluent in your data issues and data management. They understand the internal agency administration, any politics related to any of the data linking aspects. Definitely want to make sure that you've got individuals on your team who understand data governance structures and processes within your agency and your program, and really just have a good sense and knowledge of your data. But we also, on the flip side of that, we want to be really clear about what's not included in this toolkit. So this toolkit is focused on data linking, and what we know based on where many of you are at and where your greatest need is in terms of making that program to program partnership around data linking and exploring that. So the toolkit's not designed or does not address, data sharing where you might pull, query your data in aggregate in an Excel file. It doesn't contain, any identifiable information, and you're sharing that with a partner. So the toolkit's doesn't relate to that. It also is not specific to data integration, which is a much more kind of technical, long-term, sustainable process. And we do have a blog that we talk about the subtle nuances between sharing, linking, and integration, and would definitely recommend that you take a look at that. That blog can be accessed up here on this on the link from the toolkit. And then also just want to make sure we're really clear that when you're thinking about how to link tables within your single data system, this toolkit is not specific to that, because when you're simply doing that technical aspect within your own data system, you're not negotiating partnerships or setting up data sharing agreements or those kinds of things. And so we really tried to tailor this to where we hear from our Part B, Part C colleagues, where you're at in terms of the needs that you have around data linking. Okay, and as I referenced, we do have, the tabs throughout, if you do need help with data linking, an easy place to be able to request technical assistance from DaSy. So that's the general kind of introduction, who's this for, what is it? I'm going to take us now, I'm going to skip over the data linking introduction because Howard covered a lot of the basics around what is data linking when we opened up the webinar today. But I do want to take a look at the data linking partnerships and highlight some of that for the group as well. So one of the things that we also wanted to reference is that we know many of you are working with researchers, and that sometimes you will be working with researchers where you will pull a cut of data, and maybe another partner does as well, and you're both shipping them off to the university, and they're going to do some analysis, right? While we recognize that absolutely does require legal sharing agreements, that is not actually what this is specific to. This is really where you're managing that data linking process. So we try to call out some of those questions that we continue to hear, because, you know, I think at the end of the day, the good news is there are so many different ways that you can engage with your partners around data. But again, we're very specific to how we're structuring our conversation with you around data linking. There are so many benefits and really impactful benefits in relation to data linking that we always like to stress. And, you know, these are the things that we've been hearing from all of our CN619 colleagues as we've done various conferences and conversations and technical assistance in terms of the benefits of linking. You know, the time and cost, for instance, that you can save with creating some of those efficiencies. It just can't, you know, we can't underscore that enough. We know sometimes that linking can feel like an add-on because it may not be part of your core responsibilities, but there are some efficiencies that can be gained. And also, you know, just being the process by which working through these data linking partnerships, the improved relationships. But I think the biggest piece is that, you know, through your linked person level records, you're able to answer so many more questions that you weren't previously able to answer, and to really be able to give you some insights and how potentially to move forward to better serve young children and their families. But we also have to weigh the flip side to that and be really conscientious data managers and data administrators as we go forward. So we do try to also share some of the risks and limitations in relation to data linking. And we share these just, you know, in an effort to be very transparent, but also to be proactive, so that as we're working together, we can think about what kind of mitigation strategies need to be in place to make sure that as you're pursuing this partnership, that you've considered issues, for instance, around misinterpretation of the data and how you're going to work together as a team to look at the analysis and any resulting messages, for instance, so there isn't that misinterpretation. You know, constantly monitoring for any potential unintended disclosure of personally identifiable information. But one of the things we also want to stress to you is that you know, some of the risks, the potential risks that we're identifying within the toolkit, CN619 are really well positioned already to mitigate those risks. For instance, usually the data for CN619 is of pretty high quality, and you know, so you're ready to begin those data linking conversations. And you know, so much has already been done around trying to manage that, you know, that disclosure risk. So we share these so that we can be proactive together in thinking about mitigation, but also want to assure Part C and Part B 619 staff that these are manageable, and it's just a part of being good stewards of the data that we're responsible for. So, okay, and I want to make sure I am going to swing back over here and just make sure that I hit on data linking, CN619 data linking partners. So we want to identify here all the different variety of partners that you potentially might be interacting with. And these align very much to what you saw in the poll today. And want to also emphasize that as we have any of these infographics and such, we always do make them available for download if you want to be able to look at them more in depth, or to be able to share them internally as you're having conversations. But there are just so many opportunities as you think about how to link your data to answer questions, and what those questions might be. And so we do know that C and 619 often link their data together in relation to transition or in relation to outcomes. And so we're going to go a bit further into that here in just a quick moment. But again, there are so many other opportunities that you can explore in relation to the CAPTA requirements and data, the home visiting. We know there are a lot of conversations happening around Part C and EDI, for instance. And so, as we continue to work with states and build out technical assistance with you, we'll continue to really monitor and think about and grab some of those questions, much like we've done for our linking C and 619. I'm going to move over to this tab. And you can see here that we have included just an overview of why to really link the C and 619 data, and then provided you for download the transition and child outcome questions that you might seek to answer through a data linking partnership. And you can see here it is in the form of a handout that you'll be able to access. So we've tried to, as we've worked on this toolkit, to think about what you might need to support the process, but also to give you the tools, the resources, and the handouts to help facilitate that as well. So, all right, I am going to now turn it over to my colleague, Bruce Bull, who is going to walk us through the steps for data linking. But before I do so, I just want to continue to make a plug that you, as we're going through here, if you want to continue to add to this Padlet, we encourage you to do so. So with that said, Bruce, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Denise. I'm going to grab the screen, move over my thing, share. Okay. You should be seeing the data linking toolkit steps to data linking. Somebody tell me if they are not. So what we have done is we have broken out the steps to data linking, as you can see here across the top. And I'm going to briefly go over those. Each of these steps has activities with it, and we're not going to go to the detail with the activity level. But I do want to re-reference what Howard spoke about before, which is the partnership configurations, because the partnership configurations often dictate this, not only the steps and the amount of effort in each step, but it dictates the activities involved with each of the steps. And in some cases, who would be involved with those activities for those steps. So the blog talks a little bit about, or we do have a blog on that, but read those about the configurations. As we scroll down, we have a very large figure here that speaks to each of the steps and the activities within each. And you'll also notice in the 3 right-hand columns that we talk about, or we show which of these activities is recommended for each of those partnership configurations. And we have a key to that that looks somewhat like the consumer reports. We recommend that these activities are required for certain steps or for certain configurations. These activities would be required for each step, recommended or optional. And in each step, those are detailed. On this overview page around the steps, I also wanted to point out that we bring out frequently what we call tips to bring to your attention some components that are particularly important and we would like you to read when you are at this piece. So before I get to each of these steps in detail, I thought this morning, I'm in the process of purchasing a new truck. And I went online and I downloaded the owner's manual for that new truck. And it's 600 and some odd pages. And I couldn't help but think to myself, it's not unlike this data linking toolkit. It's got the universe of content, even though some of this content seems self-evident, easy to understand. Some of it in both the owner's manual and in the toolkit is much more complex. Stepping back a moment, this toolkit is designed for we technical assistance providers to help you with your data linking activities. But it's also designed for you to look at it, pick up those pieces that are pertinent to the data linking tasks that you may at hand. And yes, we would enjoy working with you on that, but we also understand sometimes you just need some quick help. And so these and quick resources. So these steps and activities are designed for both technical assistance providers to assist you with it, as well as doing it yourself. So moving to step one, this is check your data. At the top of each step, we reiterate what's in the diagram, the step, the applicable activities, the recommendation thereof. And we also bring in the concept of team members. We recognize that there are a lot of potential members that can be involved, both from the Part C or 619 program, as well as any partner program that you are linking with on their side. The typical people that you would expect, the coordinator, the data manager, typically always involved, IT, sometimes you need administrative staff as well. And we make a recommendation as to whether or not we see those folks as required, recommended, or optional. I'm going to spend just a hair of time on step or activity 1A, which is check if data are available. As Denise said, the Part C and 619 data are almost always of high quality and exist, but you don't necessarily know from your potential linking partner about their data. So we do strongly recommend that you go through this step-by-step review of the data that are available. Even if they are available, are they high enough quality for you to spend the time and effort so that in fact you can answer the question with linked data with some confidence? If no, it may not be worth the effort. Maybe the effort is better spent on improving data quality. Even high quality data that are available, are they allowed to be shared? In some cases, they may not be. And if they are available and potentially shareable, is a data sharing agreement required? And there is context and resources in here relative to sharing. So we speak to that just because sometimes we jump to the immediate linking tasks without necessarily taking the time and effort to review the validity and quality of the data and making sure that it's available to do what we want it to do. All right, that being said, I'm going to skip to step 2, assess partner readiness. Obviously, if you're linking data within your own program, partner readiness is not an issue and it would not be something you're spending any time on. But if you are joining up with a partner, even if it's C and 619, linking their data together, you will want to confirm and affirm the availability of the partner's readiness to do what you think needs to be done, and vice versa. And I'm going to show you a partner readiness packet that we put together that is just that resource. This partnership readiness packet was designed for you and your potential partner to look at the potential of what you might be doing and consider whether you are literally on the same page in this case, because this is a document that you could print and use. Are you coming into it with the same conceptual understandings? Do you have the internal support to make this happen? Does the timing and work for you, for the partner, against the other priorities that you have? So we go through this, or we ask you to go through this. We'd love to work with you on this, determine if data linking is something that is doable in the foreseeable future or not. We then provide you a use case in the event that it is likely to go forward. And we provide an example then of a use case as well for you to look at as to what might be considered. We strongly recommend developing a use case because we think it helps establish the expectations for both partners, timelines, potential resources that are needed, etc. Moving to step 3. Step 3 is formalizing data partnership, which I didn't click on. Stepping back a half a step, We spend a lot of time before we get to linking the data, at least in terms of the effort that's necessary between the partners, establishing the partnership, making sure the data are in fact ready, getting the formalities in place to make sure that that linking effort, which is significant, is going to be worth the effort, right? That you've got buy-in up and down the administrative food chain for the linking work that's going to happen, especially when it's program to program, whether it's inside the same agency or program to program across agency. To that end, we strongly recommend that there be established a partnership management plan. I'll show you a packet that supports that very same. You have a data sharing agreement in place. And for space saving online, we have an expansion and contraction of the content for each of these activities. Now let me show you that partnership. So when it comes to formalizing the partnership, we have a fair amount of content here for you. We get into the considerations, questions to ask your collective selves as to what will be the expected involvement, your goals, getting into issues of how will you match the data, which we'll get into here in just a moment without going into a lot of detail, making sure that the data is understood by both programs' perspective, what kind of frequency will be involved, who will be doing what and when, who has access to information, what's the governance that will oversee the data once it is in fact linked, where will it reside, who should have access. So then we give you a template for such a plan, and we provide the content here. This is very much like our data governance templates that we have, which we also cross-reference in the toolkit. Establishing this in writing will go a long way to set the path for successful data linking. And that is a downloadable packet, as we have many in here. Moving to linking the data. Linking the data has the most activities of any of our steps. There are 10. You can see that most of them have the solid colored dot, meaning it's a required activity in almost all cases. The team members are significant. The buy-in both at the data, often IT, potentially data analyst, if in fact there would be somebody outside of the data manager, possibly other subject matter experts, recognizing that the linking is of data from two different sources. Subject matter experts on one source are not necessarily, and usually not, the subject matter expert on the other. So the ability and the working relationships across the partners and across the full team is very important to establish. We're not going to go into a tremendous amount of detail about record matching. I did note in the Padlet one comment about maybe more now around IDs. If you are blessed with having a shared ID across program data sets, congratulations. You have a significant leg up on those that do not. But that is not frequently the case. So we get into a couple of different types of matching methodologies here. And that gets into quite a bit of detail, which is not necessarily the focus of this call, but it is something we definitely can help you with. There's a little sidebar here about non-child records. We have been primarily focused on non-child records, but obviously there's other types of linking that can be done. You can do it with workforce records. You can do program level records as well. The basic concepts support all of that. You get into identifying exactly which data elements are going to be needed to support the use case and answer the questions that you are attempting to address. Selecting those particular elements, creating the matching algorithm. There's not a small amount of effort here, it's a fair amount of effort. Making sure the matching algorithm, which may take more than a couple iterations to dial in, is doing what it needs to do to capture with confidence as many matching records between the two sets as absolutely possible. Establishing the business rules, standardizing the elements, doing the actual match, creating a joined data set, checking that quality, certification of that joined data set if that's necessary, not always. There's lots and lots of detail here, a lot of content. This is the one step that you might imagine took us the longest to write and the most time and the most electrons on this website. Let's see, what do I have for that? Step 5 is the analysis plan. Once you've got your data, your linked data set established, the process of analyzing that data for purposes of answering those questions becomes important. This may already have been established in your partnership agreement and your data sharing agreement, which is great. And we would love to see that. And we have some content here on the analysis and dissemination plan. I'm looking at my time, so I'm not going to go to that. Go ahead and conduct your analysis. And finally, step 6 is sustain the data linking. Once all is said and done, then this data linking does need to be, assuming this is a frequent activity that's going to be done between programs, how do you maintain that particular process? And how do you improve it over time? Who needs to be involved? And there's a checklist to support that. We like to see data linking once the big lift initially has been done, that is something that is done with a high degree of frequency, whether it's annually or more frequently, that dictates based on your question. We would like to see the support put in place so that becomes a routine activity, part of your general process for linking the data, using that data as designed. I think I am back to Howard at this point.
Right. Bruce and Denise, we did have one question come in from Barbara asking about, do you have wildly different drop-down options? And Barbara, we might need you to expand on that question a little bit.
That wasn't really a question. That was more of a nodding along to something or adding something where Bruce was talking about that very first in step 1, when you're figuring out what data you actually have available to link and what you want to link. North Carolina's been working on this for a while. And just in some of those early steps in talking about our data, we discovered that we had data fields where what was in the menus was very, very different. For instance, we kind of collect our race and ethnicity information differently, just in those two sort of sister programs in the same state. So there were all sorts of little nuggets like that we found in there where our range of available options were not the same for some of the data points we want to share.
Barbara, you get right to the nuance of this stuff. It becomes this minutia that when you have to bury yourself in.
Yes.
Race ethnicity is a perfect example of that, right? And how different programs capture that, because they sometimes have to report it slightly differently. We do recommend a couple of tools. We do recommend the CEDS Align and Connect tools to try to help parse out that nuanced stuff, because that's all pre-work that you all have to do to get that alignment. But great point. And wildly is a great adjective to describe it.
Right. Thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Denise, for giving us an incredibly thorough overview of the data linking toolkit. We do want to now share about opportunities and next steps. So first, want to start off with consider joining DaSy's Data Linking Working Series. So we'll be offering a series of meetings focused on data linking. We're looking for about 5 to 6 states to participate. We anticipate having 2 to 3 calls that happen. We will be sharing an announcement that will be forthcoming to apply for the Data Linking Working Series. And just wanted to pause there to see if Bruce and Denise had anything else they wanted to add there before we move on.
Yeah, I do, Howard. The ideal state that would say, yeah, I'm interested, I want to come to a couple of these calls so I can work on data linking, if they are interested in linking with another program, they would have had a call with that potential partner and say, hey, come join me on these calls. And let's hook up and learn together about this potential linking opportunity. So that would be my ask, that if you're thinking about doing it with another partner, see if you can get them to invest a couple of hours of time to think about this with you.
And this is Barbara again from North Carolina. We participated with Part B 619 in our state as a part of the data linking cohort all the way back in 2016. And I cannot encourage states that might be interested in this enough to go do it, because it was so enormously helpful for us to get that kind of technical assistance around data linking. So go do it. It'll be fun. You'll love it.
Great. Thanks so much, Barbara, for sharing that experience with us. Okay, another opportunity would be the upcoming sessions on data linking at the IDIO conference. You will see two here listed: everything you need to know to successfully link your data, a new resource, and a state success story. And then take a walk on the data side, Arizona's collaborative approach to data integration. So if you're planning to attend IDIO, please check out these sessions to learn more and have conversations with your colleagues. Another opportunity is to request individual state TA on data linking. So feel free to reach out to DaSy by contacting your DaSy TA providers or via the DaSy Technical Assistance website. So now I just want to take a moment to review some of the responses that came in through the Padlet. So first, we started with the question, if you have never linked data, why not? And so we see some responses about not sure where to start, incompatible systems, governance issues. And then if you have linked data with another program, how has that worked out? Clunky. Part B data linking has some mixed results because the original vision did not end up being sustainable through the Part B system. The captive data linking has had mixed results also because of limitations in the timeliness of the data linking system, and difficult to get permission and legal okay and signatures when programs are in different agencies. And then what questions have you been able to answer with linked data? And so one response being, so far, just adding the shared ID on our SEA child find data. And then lastly, what were the challenges if you have linked data? Navigating bureaucracy, accessing a common ID through our state's ECIDs on a consistent and timely basis. And then the biggest challenges are understanding HIPAA and FERPA and getting data sharing agreements in place and getting data systems to talk to each other. Absolutely, all these things take an incredible amount of time and effort to create those data sharing agreements. I invite Bruce and Denise if they have any comments or questions on these responses.
Yeah, I'll swing. No surprise that nobody's saying, yeah, it's the actual linking work that's been really hard and find the fields and all that element stuff. It's all that macro stuff about it, right? It's the bureaucracy, it's the administration, it's the support, getting permission, getting legal to sign off on stuff. And that is a tremendous amount of the work. It's almost always way more than the actual technical linking side of things. And we, DaSy, can help you with that as well. Getting your ducks in the row so that eventually when it's time to do the linking work, that part can be done. But no surprise. And thank you, Jamie, for actually putting your name in, being vulnerable. Not sure where to start. You're exactly in the right place. You've actually come to the right place. So give us a call, shoot us an email. We'd love to chat with you if you want to move forward.
Great,
thanks, Bruce. Okay.
I also just want to take a quick moment I just want to make sure we recognize some of our partners. that we have been working with on the data linking toolkit. And so we worked extensively with our partners at SID, the Center for Integration of IDEA Data, and then also our partners at AISP. So I want to make sure just to get that plug in, and we do cite throughout where we've built on some of their resources. So even beyond what we're doing here with DaSy, there are some great resources, and we point them out in the toolkit.
Great, thanks, Denise. We see another comment coming in. We could really use guidance tools to bring legal to help us get permissions rolling. So thanks for typing in the chat, Susan. Any other questions that folks want to either type in the chat or come off mute to ask a question?
And Susan, guidance tools for legal. Yeah, I know there's, Denise, one of our documents is the PTAC DaSy document that we did. It may have some content for the legal side. I think some of our tools do help on that. Some of those considerations that we ask, Susan, help get you started on that. But again, we could help you with that piece as well. And we understand that takes time. Getting anything through legal, and I'm not picking on any one state, but in my experience, takes a tremendous amount of time. Lawyers, multiple lawyers across programs, I don't think it's necessarily doubling. I'd say it's probably quadrupling the time. And you can quote me as Denise Mazzi on that.
All right. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So I say let's go ahead and move on. Just wanted to share our resources. So obviously the data linking toolkit, the resources that are included in the data linking toolkit, and then the DaSy critical questions that I shared and spoke about earlier in the presentation. So thank you all for joining the data linking toolkit. We hope you enjoyed learning about it, and remember to reach out to us if you have any TA needs. We are here to help. Also, you will be receiving an evaluation email from DaSy TA. If you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes to complete that, that always helps us to improve your webinar experience. So thank you all again for joining us today, taking time out of your busy schedules. We really appreciate it. And always feel free to reach out to us, your TA liaisons, or the DaSy TA website. So thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.